Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury Interviews. Today we have Joy Wirta, and she's the CEO of a company called Exit Life Ready. And we're going to be discussing this project today. Just before we begin, you can find us on Sudstown and join the conversation. Joy Wirta, welcome to episode 51.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. And it is just absolutely amazing to be part of this conversation, Danny. So thank you.
So, what's cooking on the barbecue? What have you been doing?
We've been really busy, actually. When I think about everything that we've been working towards with end of life planning, if you want, I'll give you a little background on Exit Life Friday.
Absolutely. Take us way
So,
back to the beginning.
so it all started with a conversation with research and development at Cambridge College. We were actually at a funeral, and there was an individual there, Kota Cacciati. We were chatting about end of life planning, the individual that had just passed. And for those that, grassroots is my hometown, Greater Sudbury. I'm a northern girl, born, bred. And we were sitting there having a conversation about, the challenges when we had just lost Gwen Price. So Gwen was a huge advocate in Greater Sudbury for seniors involved, and she was one of my co-hosts with Aging in Action on Eastlink TV. Her death really kind of took us all for a loop. It was very unexpected, but we were talking about, all the paperwork, and I've been a public servant just before retirement for 25 years. So I got that side of it. So we're chatting and we're like, there's got to be an easier way. Like, why are we bringing all these paperwork? And I myself was going through a journey personally and understood, carrying around this folder of information on decision making so that it reduces the burdens on my family. So we fast forward, we have a conversation again, and then we were very fortunate. It was just, I don't know, the timing was perfect. We were able to work with Cambridge College back in 2022, 23, just when that world had really took us all for a spin. And we were able to get some funding and work with the students, Northern Ontario End of Life Doulas, a collaboration with Cameron College, the students, R&D, and SERC in this mobile grant, and we built a tool to help support Exit Life Ready. And it was all about, taking it digital instead of having all these paperwork, sitting at home in a box. And that's where it started. And then it just kind of took a life of its own over the last couple of years, and we're still going strong. And even in the next few days, we launch another part of our project, so we haven't stopped.
That sounds like it could be very, very useful for sure.
It is. It's a wonderful opportunity to think outside the box. Anybody who knows in Greater Sudbury, we have great innovation. We have all kind of, you know, had some lessons learned, I think, in how we're going to move the dial. And for us, one of my partners is Jordan with Northern Law, an amazing lawyer, and have been part of my story for a long time. And then Nicole Blab with seniors. And when we're looking at that expertise of legal, health, our end of life doulas, it was just a collaboration, and we knew the numbers didn't lie, right? We were all data, but many time in our healthcare system, individuals, you, myself, your family, my family, are meeting at the point of crisis in that emergency room. So our users, then we thought, okay, we knew the stats sucked. Let's call it as it is, right? We knew only 70% of Canadians have advanced care planning. Like it's realistic. And then we started looking at those emergency room visits, and our users are like, well, could I have all my mom's medications instead of just her power of attorney or her will? And then I knew what it was like on my side of it. Every time I went to the ER or went to Sunnybrook or had to report to a healthcare environment or even, Health Sciences North or our healthcare team, it's constantly, oh yeah, who's my new physician? Who's my new oncologist? Who's my new? And so having it accessible and quick access, it was like, yeah, I like that. So those conversations from our users, because we are a digital app, right? We're in both app stores, and it was okay. Yeah, you're right. This is a technology that we have enabled solutions and designed it to fit in, our demographic. In Northern Ontario, we know that climate's different, right? It's not like Southern Ontario. We don't have the quick accesses, and sometimes our systems don't always communicate together. So we thought, okay, let's empower people. Let's go from crisis care to proactive readiness, from that isolation, and you live in Espanola or Elliott Lake or Manitoulin Island, or in our geographic location is so huge. Let's support. And there's this huge myth that as we get seasoned in life, adults don't, aging adults ourselves, don't use technology. But in reality, that's the fastest growing group of digital adopters. So we were like, okay, let's give them confidence. Let's help them be prepared. Let's give them the tools and create technology that was not just meaningful, trusted, but improved our quality of life as we got older. So that's what we did. And, we're continuing down that journey. And in the next few days, we're just doing the aesthetics. We're like, all right, we've given them a tool. One of the things that we recognize, and I am a senior volunteer for Hospice Palliative Care Ontario for Northeast Region. And I hear the conversations regularly that, social workers, healthcare environments are saying, individuals are coming into the emergency room, or older adults, or just even yourself, myself, any age, where they don't have the information they need. They don't have a power of attorney. They're afraid of it, right? Oh, if we go ahead and, talk about my will or my wishes, then something bad's going to happen. So we needed to take that stigma away. So working with my partners in business, with Jordan and Nicole, we were like, okay, let's give a tool. So we actually have a power of attorney and will builder coming on our website in the next couple of days that is free. That will take away, you're an app user, go build your will and power of attorney. Here's a tool for you. But let's reduce those stats so that we could start seeing that transition, because national hospital data is showing us that 65 and older account for 40% of the hospital visits in Canada. Now, by the time you're seasoned in life, so I'm not going to give my actual age, everybody knows my birthday's coming up, but 55 and older, which starts increasing, right? So 47% of those hospitalizations in the last decade are because of fall related. So how can we give them the tools so that if your mom, your dad, something happens, you're the decision maker, you're not having to carry this baggie of medications, that you have everything so that it's quicker. It's, supporting that information and helping and keep you informed. So I think what we've done is we've just built a tool to bring confidence, because it's the one guarantee in life. You don't have to pay your taxes. No, remember, it was federal for 25 years. I probably shouldn't say that, but you don't have to pay your taxes. You don't have to have kids, right? You have choice in our world, but we are going to die. So we all in our business world have this exit strategy. Why not take it to your personal world, right? Give the caregivers the support. You know what's going to happen. We're going to age. We're aging rapidly. We're growing faster. Give the tools to reduce that burden in our healthcare system. Be preventative. We're all talking about, embracing digital solutions. So we were fortunate, and Exit, like I said, took a life alone. Like last October, we were part of the Venture North pitch, and there was great lessons learned and great relationships that came into it from us when it came to, Canadian cloud infrastructure and data sovereignty, and with ThinkOn. And then we look at the world's leading innovation through cyber risk solutions, working with CFC. So we've been very fortunate in Northern Ontario. Like I can't even express to you, Danny, how great. Like, I don't know, I've monopolized the conversation, but it's a passion for us, and we are making great strides to put this greater Sudbury on the map to have that best death possible, whatever that looks like for you.
Well, you know what? Your job here is to monopolize the conversation because it's your interview and you're doing really, really well. I do have a question. I do have
Go
one
for it.
question.
Absolutely.
Do you think that when people pass away, in a lot of cases, that they leave like a difficult scenario behind with the stuff they have and maybe the money and whatever, but all of that put together, like stress for the family and stuff?
Absolutely. And if I put my retirement hat on, so, as a public servant, and we have great information, that was common conversation. I think, to be honest and very clear, I think as Canadians, we can do better. And For me, looking at into it today, coming, from my career, I think that the terminologies we give ourselves in Ontario, the legislation, the governance from province to province, makes it very complicated unnecessarily. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to build this builder is, why would we want to have a power of attorney? Well, if I'm going to travel and I know it's not going to be, maybe Nova Scotia is going to be different than Prince New Brunswick or Manitoba versus Ontario. And why would I want to, do those necessities of life? So I think we complicated ourselves sometimes. The terminologies, there's so many individuals that think, oh, well, I'm power of attorney of financial or personal care. And then, something happens and they don't realize that the moment that person has died, it's the power of attorney and will, it's now your will and testament that comes in, that first minute. The power of attorney is no good at that point. That's only a document that's really supporting, well, the individual can no longer use a voice for themselves. So I think we're making great strides in Ontario to, and even in the north, to start educating the importance. We were fortunate to work and given the opportunity to build a relationship with Espanola Hospital, and that, gives us an opportunity to start these conversations a little bit earlier. If for anyone who's, taking part in this conversation right now, they understand I am one of the first end of life doulas in Northern Ontario. And that was probably my passion, was when we were looking at building the modules at Laurentian University, and we supported the program there for the end of life doulas, and we set that bar high. It was all about giving the tools to be informed and understanding the terminologies so we can do better. It does get complicated, but if we can at least write it down on a piece of paper, what are your wishes? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want a big funeral? Like, it doesn't have to cost you a dime. You can put it on a piece of paper today. What are those wishes? Where is the information? And now we've moved to a digital world where everything's word passwords, right? Well, I know as an end of life doula and supporting in families with individuals that are dying or have died, oftentimes you're like, I don't know where to start. And that was my first venture. And then, when I worked with NORCAT in their startup program, was that end of life planning and helping families after someone died. And the funeral industry is a wonderful, growth group in Greater Sudbury, and no question about it. Oftentimes we forget, though, once the casseroles stop coming and the phone stops ringing, that these individuals now have to navigate it all by themselves. So we do complicate it.
Well, you definitely have that CEO manner of speaking.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
in a complimentary way, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. I think, everybody has a story. It's it's your story to be shared, right? So legacy doesn't have to be a monetary. That was one of the reasons, when I retired from the public service, exit became my world, and I, can only wear so many hats. There's only so many hours in a day, like most of our businesses and entrepreneurs know. We sold our family home. My husband was with valet and, also retired, and we thought, okay, life taught us something during that world when we couldn't hug our loved ones or we didn't get to say goodbye. When our world shifted, a lot of us as Canadians understand that there's a new quality of life to be spoken for, right? Your legacy, your story doesn't have to be monetary. So we took a leap of faith, and we, ourselves kind of have this little satellite, and we visit in the Sioux. We go back to Sudbury and Greater Sudbury, and for Exit Life Ready as of August 1st, our new office locations at 296 Larch. And, we've had great support in Sudbury. But I think for a lot of us, it's, just reduce the burdens in our healthcare system, grow or become seasoned in life gracefully, have a story, whatever that legacy is for you, and know that you're doing it with dignity and respect. And that's one thing, as somebody who's been down that path of, opening up doors in healthcare, giving that empowering voice. My children, my family don't have to like my wishes and choices, especially when we do have a very active community with medical assistance in dying. They do have to respect it, though. And I'm constantly reminding that it's my journey ahead. So, whatever that looks like, I think it's really important for any listener, any viewer, any individual to understand what is it you're to be empowered for before that crisis comes. So for us, Exit Life Ready is just about giving the tools to be able to share your story your way, whatever that looks like.
Did you mention that you have an office upcoming downtown?
Yes, so very fortunate. Northern Law has, Jordan's like, thanks for that plug, Joy. Northern Law will be moving locations in the very near future from the Hatch Building in Greater Sudbury, and they are actually moving on Larch Street, and we'll be having an office location there. So we will have our new office, formal grassroots, putting it down in the cement will be Access Life Friday office will be at 296 Larch. And August 1st will be our official location. We'll still have satellite offices. The one thing with tech that we've learned is sometimes those expertise, and I'll use ThinkOn as that data sovereignty as a perfect, voice. They are not in Northern Ontario. They are located in Southern Ontario, but they are an amazing organization that, thankfully NORCAT has, always opened up doors for us when it came to data sovereignty and Canadians and access of information and all those security sides that come with Exit Life's Ready, it's, digital product in that engineering. So we know that having satellite offices opens up multiple doors, not just for education, because as a founding team, Greater Sudbury is our foundation. That's where lived experience, legal insight, innovation. You want to talk about it, NORCAT, Northern Ontario Angels, from the pitch to, Greater Sudbury is Cambridge College and Lawrence University. That is our hub. We will, though, now that we see that our product is global, we go where the expertise sometimes has to take us by business necessity. And so we are starting to open up satellite offices to make sure that we're meeting the Canadians' needs, not just from a marketing perspective, but working along that software design engineering and that one-stop shop.
Amazing.
Thank you.
On a side note, there's a person who approached me 4.5 years ago with an idea very similar to this, and they wanted me to be the technical side of it because I would know how to contribute in that way, and I wasn't interested in it. But I
But
guess,
maybe now you'll come my way.
well, it's a great idea. Like it's very in demand. I can imagine. Like unfortunately it's sad, but when people pass away, there's services that are needed there. You know.
You're right, and it doesn't stop. I think if we can start being more proactive, maybe in before we get a diagnosis or just age gracefully, that opens up that opportunity to, normalize the conversation so that the next generations do better. When my parents died, I was thrown, and believe me, I was educated. My brother was educated. We're public servants. We had careers and volunteered in Greater Sudbury. I was, on boards, Valley East Progressive Hockey, and my husband and I were, he was a ref and volunteer, and we were always well connected in our community. When my parents died very unexpectedly, I didn't know what to do, right? I didn't even know if they wanted to have a funeral, if they wanted to be cremated, did they want to be buried? There was never conversation because we thought we had more time. And I think that's it. We all think we have more time. So if we can give the tools today, meet our users where they're most comfortable. So you're 30, you're 40, you're, TikTok and scrolling and sitting on your couch, right? Binge watching Netflix, whatever it is you're doing. If we can give them the tools to say, do better than us, because we sure the heck didn't do it well, because our stats show us that in advanced care planning and, access of information. So if we can empower those next generations to come to normalize the conversation, talking about your wishes isn't going to kill you, right? That's probably a given. Know what opportunities are out there. We have a beautiful hospice in Greater Sudbury. We have beautiful hospices everywhere. Sault Ste. Marie has ours. We have Serenity in North Bay, and we're very fortunate in Ontario. We have beautiful locations. half the people still don't know they exist until they need to. So by giving them tools to say, hey, here's some great information on legal. Here's some great, what is your legacy, right? What's your story? We all have one. When we built the app, there was a feature in it on our last update that was really important to me because we started it just to have access like a digital vault. My mom and dad had the case papel in Dowling, right? Was where their banking was, and everything was in this vault. So we thought, take it very similar. Whatever's important to you in that infrastructure, you can scan it, put it in your app, carry it. You're traveling, you're on the Caribbean island, something happens and you get bit by, I don't know, a stingray or anything. You have the ability to, okay, here's the geolocation. I live in, maybe you're in the Caribbean and it's pulling up or you're on a cruise and okay, this is the nearest ER, this is the nearest healthcare center. So giving them the tools to say, hey, be informed, know your facts and what's available. So it's a digital vault, but we also knew, okay, well, you know what's really important to me because every time I make them, my neighbors, my family, my friends, Joy, what's your recipe for your chocolate chip cookies? That's my legacy. So that's in the app, right? A place to put your favorite recipes. We have a user that's just recently asked us, could we make our own memorial video? So, you know, the ability then to upload pictures and those pieces. So we asked the engineer, he goes, yeah, we can add that after the builder's done. So we, one thing with our power of attorney and will builder coming, it will be web-based. The one thing, you know, it's all wonderful to have technology on your device, on your cell phone, may it be Android or Apple, whatever that is for you, your choice. But we also know when it comes to filling out forms and, you know, doing your power of attorney, your will, and you're getting a little seasoned in life, or maybe you're just doing your due diligence, you bought your first home or got married and you need to have your affairs in order in the event of, you know, those worst case scenarios in life, then having it available on our website was the best practice for us as a business choice. So Jordan's like, all right, let's build it in there. And it's just as simple, you know, for those, if you have a complex estate or you need more information, well, here's a great lawyer, head over to Northern Law and, you know, check out Jordan Dupuy. He'll give you all the tools you need. But for us, it was all about education was our primary goal. Just, I don't know, do a little bit better than what the generations before us did. And hopefully the generations after us will normalize that conversation because it can happen to any of us at any time. And I think, you know, we've lost enough people in Greater Sudbury recently.
So now that we've discussed the business, we need to talk about Sudbury a little bit because this is Sudbury interviews, and
Absolutely.
I have to ask you the daily segment, which is a question I ask every guest since episode 5. We got about 7 minutes left, Joy,
Yep.
and here's the question: what is one thing that you feel would make Sudbury greater?
Oh, you don't, we need more than 7 minutes. That'll be a second episode. I'll just tell you right now. So there are some politicians, some investors in Greater Sudbury that have reached out recently and said, we need in Greater Sudbury a one-stop shop, a hub where an individual that is either maybe going through a diagnosis, and I'll compare apples to apples here in, you know, in healthcare. So Southern Ontario has all these wonderful little, you go to the Sunnybrook Cancer Center there and, you know, they have a valet service. You know, here we are fighting for parking, right? And if anybody's reported to the Northeastern Cancer Center or the hospital, you know what it's like. So why are we complicating things so much? So we need more support for those in our, because we have families from Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay that come into Greater Sudbury, and you know they're struggling, and you're asking them to park a vehicle 6 miles away and then go walk to the cancer center because maybe they don't have a support system or it's their first visit and they don't know there's a travel or an opportunity for support. But we have investors in Greater Sudbury. We have seasoned politicians that have said we need a grief resource center, a one-stop shop where you can drop your child off at daycare or childcare while you go get chemo or radiation, where you can provide a resource center of information because maybe you're under a diagnosis that is not very common and you need to Google, but you don't have access to a library or a print system. Or maybe it's 2 o'clock in that witching hour and you know that your end of life is coming And you're like, you know what? I need a safe space. Not I need to decompress because I got to put that smile on 24/7 for my kids, my family, my team, my healthcare, my spouse, my children, my friends, my work. But I just want to cry. But I want to do it with somebody that's going to help talk me off that ledge because I'm not suicidal. I just need that safe space. So why can we not, one brick at a time, with all the funding we do in Greater Sudbury, build that safe space for
Hmm.
all of Northern Ontario? So that we need is that grief resource center, a one-stop shop, instead of all being in silos.
Good
So does that
answer.
answer? Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
that's
already on our Reddit. It's already on our radar. Like it's ridiculous, and we're living in silos. It does not make business sense at all. So there are a few organizations, esteemed individuals that have said, "Joy, we'll do it if you figure out how to bring it." So one brick at a time was an individual's thought process, and I'm like, I like it. One brick at a time. But
one
yes,
brick
I
at a
think it's
time.
missing. Yeah, it's missing, and we all live in silos. And why should and no, I'm very supportive of all healthcare centers, but why should some of the Southern Ontario centers have more access? I get it's a bigger city, more dollars, but maybe we could do things a little differently here, think outside the box also. Because I do believe, and I remember walking into our Northern Cancer Center, a great institution, and I firmly support, and we all buy those tickets, whatever they are. And it's a challenge sometimes when you're trying to figure out, and we all know what our parking's like. Well, why can't we have, if we can have a Uber service or, skip the dishes come to your door, why can't you have somebody that says, here, I'll take your vehicle, go park it for you. You go ahead into your appointment, and I'll be here when you come back. Could do it to go out to a beautiful meal in Toronto. Well, it's true, right? Call it as it is. I am too seasoned in life not to call it as it is anymore. You know what? We didn't get to where we are by not sometimes having to speak the voice that we all need to listen to. So impact on quality of life, and that's exactly what it is. Bring a grief resource center, one-stop shop, so that we can just do it right. And if anybody's ever reported to Sunnybrook, and you see that little hospital or that little before you walk in those doors and you're at the parking lot and you see that little house in that corner that your driver that maybe drove 8 hours for an appointment or 6 hours can go and decompress while you go into your appointments and spend your day, like there's ways to do it better. So why are we not bringing infrastructure here? So that's my 2 cents on it.
Sudbury interviews, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. That's our episode for today. We were with Joy Wirta from Exit Life Ready. That's exitlifeready.com. And thank you for your time and also your enthusiasm for the work that you do. And everybody has a little piece of the puzzle, right? We got to put it all together and
Yes.
and see what the big picture is, because no one person can see it themselves. You know?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end it?
No, I just want to thank you so much for having me on this conversation today. I think it's a really important topic, and I think it's important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Exit interview ready.
Thank you.
I'm just joking. Thanks again, Joy. Talk to you again. Bye.
Thank you.